Jake Morrison stood in the long white hallway of the alien ship. His hands were sweating inside his military uniform. This was the most important day in human history, and he knew it. The ship was huge, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. The walls were smooth and white, like they were made from one giant piece of metal. Strange blue lights ran along the ceiling, giving everything an odd glow. "Remember what we practiced?" said Lisa Carter. She was his second in command. Lisa had studied the aliens for months, learning their ways. Don't look them in the eyes unless they speak to you first. Keep your hands visible at all times. Dr. Peter Hayes carried a small computer in his hands. It would translate their words into the alien language. He looked nervous. His gray hair was messy, and he kept checking the device over and over. "The translation system is working fine," Peter said, "but their language is very complex. Some things might not come out right." Jake nodded. He had been chosen to lead this meeting because he stayed calm under pressure. At least, that's what his commanders thought. Right now, he didn't feel calm at all. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrians. They had contacted Earth 6 months ago. Their message was simple. Humans had entered space that belonged to them. Now they wanted to talk. The problem was, humans didn't know this space belonged to anyone. They had been exploring and building colonies for 50 years. No one had ever stopped them before. Sam Turner, their pilot, walked up to the group. "The alien escort is coming," he said. 3 of them, wearing those silver robes. Jake straightened his uniform. "Everyone ready?" The escort arrived without making any sound. They were tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to glow softly. Their eyes were large and silver. They wore long robes that moved like liquid metal. One of the aliens spoke. The words sounded like music, but cold music. Jake's translator crackled to life. "Follow. Do not speak. Do not touch anything." They walked through more hallways. The ship was so quiet that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Everything was perfect and clean. There were no scratches, no dirt, nothing out of place. Finally, they reached a huge door. It opened without anyone touching it. Inside was the most beautiful room Jake had ever seen. The ceiling was so high he couldn't see the top. The walls were covered in patterns that seemed to move and change. In the center of the room was a throne made of crystal that sparkled like stars, and on the throne sat the Queen. Queen Veltara was the most magnificent being Jake had ever seen. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that was pale blue like morning sky. Her hair was long and silver, flowing down her back like water. But her eyes were the most amazing thing. They looked like tiny galaxies, full of swirling stars and distant light. Around the Queen stood her court. Dozens of Zephyrians in beautiful robes watched the humans enter. They all looked elegant and perfect, like living works of art. Jake stepped forward. He had practiced this speech 100 times. "Your Majesty," he began, "I am Commander Jake Morrison, representing the people of Earth. We come in peace, hoping to find understanding between our species." The Queen didn't look at him. She didn't even turn her head. Instead, she spoke to one of her advisors in their musical language. Jake's translator couldn't pick up all the words, but he heard enough. Short-lived creatures, primitive technology, lucky accidents. The advisor, a tall male with golden eyes, stepped forward. "I am Minister Colvin. Her Majesty acknowledges your presence." Jake tried again. "We know we are new to space travel. We know we have much to learn, but humans are quick learners. We adapt. We survive." Again, the Queen spoke only to her court. This time, Jake heard more through the translator. Weak bodies, chaotic minds, no understanding of the greater universe. A general in dark robes spoke up. His voice was harsh. "Humans have built colonies in 17 systems. These systems have been claimed by the Zephyrian Empire for 3,000 years. We didn't know," Jake said. "No one told us. We saw empty planets and thought, 'What you think does not matter,' the general said. 'What matters is what is.'" Jake felt his anger rising. He had come here to make peace, but these aliens were treating humans like children. Worse, like pets. The Queen finally spoke directly to the humans. Her voice was beautiful, but cold. I am Queen Veltara, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire, guardian of the inner worlds. I have lived for 800 of your years. I have seen species rise and fall. I know what humans are. She stood up from her throne. The movement was graceful, like a dancer. Humans are a young species that found space travel by accident. You are not ready for the responsibility of colonizing worlds. You fight among yourselves. You destroy your own planet. You have no wisdom. Jake stepped forward. That's not fair. Yes, we make mistakes. But we also do great things. We help each other. We explore, we create. We never give up. The Queen waved her hand dismissively. Pretty words. But I have seen your history. Wars, pollution, hatred. This is what humans bring to the galaxy. We're getting better, Jake said. His voice was getting louder. We've stopped most wars on Earth. We're healing our planet, we're learning to work together. The Queen turned her back to him. I offer humans two choices. Accept Zephyrian protection and guidance. Your colonies will be supervised by our administrators. Your ships will follow our routes. Your children will learn proper civilization. And the other choice? Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Leave. Return to your single world. Stay there until you grow wise enough for space. This may take thousands of years. If you refuse both choices, we will force you to accept the first one. Jake felt his heart pounding. Everything humanity had worked for was being taken away. All their dreams of exploring the stars, of finding new worlds, of growing as a species. Please, Jake said. Just give us a chance, let us prove what humans can do. The Queen began walking toward a side door. The meeting was over. You have proven what humans can do, she said without turning around. You have proven you are not ready. Jake took 3 quick steps forward. His voice rose with passion and desperation. We are ready. We've survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters that would have destroyed other species. We've gone from caves to starships in just a few thousand years. We have something you don't understand. The Queen stopped walking. Slowly she turned around. For the first time in the meeting, she looked directly at Jake Morrison. Her galaxy eyes met his ordinary brown human eyes, and Queen Veltara froze completely. The entire court fell silent. The Queen's advisors stared in shock. Never in 800 years had their perfect queen shown surprise at anything. But there she stood, her hand reaching toward Jake, her mouth slightly open, her star-filled eyes locked on his simple human face. Something impossible had just happened, and Jake Morrison, ordinary human commander, felt something stir deep inside his mind. Something old and powerful and strange. The meeting that was supposed to decide humanity's fate had become something else entirely. Something that would change the galaxy forever. The silence in the throne room was complete. Queen Veltara stood like a statue, her hand still reaching toward Jake. Her galaxy eyes were wide with shock. The perfect queen who had never shown surprise in 800 years was frozen in place. Jake stared back at her. Something strange was happening in his mind. He saw flashes of images he didn't understand. Ancient cities made of light, beings of incredible power, voices speaking in languages he had never heard but somehow knew. Minister Colvin stepped toward his queen. Your Majesty, are you well? The Queen didn't answer. She couldn't look away from Jake's eyes. Her hand was shaking now. General Zaxtor, the dark-robed military leader, moved closer to the humans. His own hand went to the weapon at his side. What have you done to our queen? Nothing, Jake said quickly. I didn't do anything. But that wasn't completely true. When their eyes met, Jake felt something wake up inside him. Something that had been sleeping his whole life. It was like a door opening in his mind. Dr. Peter Hayes whispered to Lisa Carter. This wasn't in any of their cultural files. Queens don't freeze up. Ever. Lisa nodded. She was watching the Zephyrian court. All of them looked worried. Some looked scared. Their perfect world had just cracked. Queen Veltara took a shaking breath. Very slowly she lowered her hand. But she still couldn't look away from Jake. Impossible, she whispered. The word was so quiet that the translator almost didn't pick it up. Your Majesty, Minister Colvin said again. Please, what is wrong? The Queen looked around at her court. For the first time, Jake saw fear in her beautiful face. Leave us, she said. Her voice was different now. Not cold and commanding, but uncertain. Your Majesty, that would not be safe, General Zaxtor said. These creatures, leave us! The Queen's voice cracked like thunder. All of you, now! The Zephyrian court exchanged worried looks, but they obeyed their queen. One by one, they filed out of the throne room. Minister Colvin was the last to leave, and he kept looking back, at Jake with suspicion. When the door closed, Queen Veltara sank back onto her crystal throne. She looked smaller now, less perfect, more real. Step into the light, she said to Jake. Jake walked forward. There was a beam of white light coming from somewhere high above. When he stood in it, the Queen gasped. It's true, she whispered. The mark is there. What mark? Jake asked. I don't understand. The Queen was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was full of wonder and fear. Your eyes, she said. They carry the Velthar, the sight of the Ancient Ones. Peter, Hayes stepped forward. Ancient Ones? Who are you talking about? The Queen looked at all four humans. How much do you know about the history of this galaxy? Not much, Jake admitted. We only reached space 50 years ago. We thought we were alone until we met other species. You are not alone, the Queen said. And you are not the first. This galaxy has been home to intelligent life for millions of years. Many species have risen and fallen, but there was one species that came before all others. We call them the architects. Sam, Turner spoke up. What happened to them? No one knows, the Queen said. They disappeared long before my people reached the stars. But they left traces, stories, legends. And according to those legends, the architects had a special sight. They could see things that others could not. The flow of time, the connections between all living things, the very structure of reality itself. Jake felt those strange images flashing in his mind again. What does this have to do with me? The Queen stood up and walked closer to him. The legends say that the architects marked certain bloodlines, certain genetic patterns. They left a part of themselves in the DNA of primitive species across the galaxy, and the mark of this gift is in the eyes. She pointed at Jake's face. Your eyes hold starlight, human. I can see it now that I know to look. The same light that shines in the ancient records. The same light that my people have searched for across 1,000 worlds. Lisa Carter frowned. That's impossible. Jake is just a normal human from Earth. Is he? The Queen asked. She walked to a wall and pressed her hand against it. The wall became transparent, showing images of ancient texts and star charts. Look at these records. They are 20,000 years old. The images showed drawings of beings with glowing eyes. The beings looked different from each other. Some tall, some short, some with fur, some with scales. But all of them had the same light in their eyes. The architects didn't just disappear, the Queen said. They prepared. They knew something was coming, something that would threaten all life in the galaxy. So they hid their knowledge and power in the children of primitive worlds. Jake stared at the ancient drawings. One of them looked almost human. But why, he asked. Why would these architects choose humans? I don't think they chose humans specifically, the Queen said. I think they chose many species. But your people were ready first. Dr. Hayes pulled out his computer and started taking notes. Ready for what? To inherit what the architects left behind, the Queen said. Jake Morrison, you are not just a human diplomat. You are the awakening of something ancient and powerful, something my people have worshipped for millennia. Jake sat down hard on the crystal steps leading to the throne. This was too much to understand. I'm just a soldier, he said. "I grew up on a farm in Kansas. I joined the Space Navy because I wanted to see the stars. I'm not special." "Look at me," the Queen said softly. Jake looked up at her. When their eyes met again, the strange feeling came back stronger. This time he saw more images. Space battles between ships he didn't recognize, planets covered in cities of light, and beings of incredible power and wisdom watching over it all. "You see them, don't you?" the Queen asked. "The memories that aren't yours." Jake nodded. He couldn't speak. "That is the architect legacy awakening in you," the Queen said. "And if you are here, if you are active, then the time the architects warned about is coming." Lisa looked worried. "What time? What did they warn about?" The Queen turned to look at the star charts on the wall. "Something is coming from the dark between galaxies, something that destroyed the architects long ago, and now it's coming back to finish what it started." Sam Turner scratched his head. "How do you know all this?" "Because my people have been studying the architect ruins for 3,000 years, the Queen said. "We found fragments of their warning systems, pieces of their last messages. They spoke of a great darkness that would return when their heirs awakened." Jake stood up. The room seemed to spin around him. "So you're saying that humanity's expansion into space wasn't natural? That we were programmed somehow?" "Not programmed," the Queen said. "Guided. The architects planted the seeds of advanced civilization in dozens of primitive species. But most never grew. Some destroyed themselves with wars. Others never developed the right combination of curiosity and cooperation. But humans did." Peter looked up from his notes. "This is incredible. If it's true, it changes everything we know about human development." The Queen nodded. "And it changes everything my people believe about themselves. We thought we were the most advanced species in the galaxy. We thought we had earned our place through our own excellence." She looked sad. "But we are just another species that the architects tried to uplift. We succeeded partially, but we never received the full inheritance. We never developed the sight. Until now," Jake said quietly. "Until now," the Queen agreed. "You carry something that my people have searched for across the stars. The direct connection to the architects themselves." Jake looked at his companions. Lisa looked excited and scared. Peter was frantically taking notes. Sam just looked confused. "So what happens now?" Jake asked. Queen Veltara walked back to her throne, but she didn't sit down. She looked like she was carrying a great weight. "Now we must prepare," she said. "If the architect's warnings were true, then something terrible is coming. Something that destroyed beings far more powerful than any of us." She looked directly at Jake again. "And you, Jake Morrison of Earth, may be the only key to stopping it." 3 days had passed since the Queen's shocking discovery. Jake Morrison sat in his guest quarters aboard the Zephyrian flagship staring out at the stars. But he wasn't really seeing them. His mind was full of the strange visions that came, stronger each day. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw more flashes of the ancient past. Cities that floated in space. Beings of pure energy dancing between stars. And always, a growing sense of darkness coming from somewhere far away. Lisa Carter knocked on his door. "Jake, the Queen wants to see you." Jake sighed and stood up. The past 3 days had been the strangest of his life. The Queen treated him like he was something precious and dangerous at the same time. Her court, however, was a different story. As they walked through the ship's corridors, Jake could feel the Zephyrian crew watching him. Their looks were not friendly. Word had spread about what happened in the throne room. Many of them were angry and scared. "They think I'm some kind of threat," Jake said to Lisa. "Can you blame them?" Lisa replied. "Their queen, who never shows emotion, freezes up when she looks at you. Then she claims you're connected to their gods. That would shake anyone's faith." They reached the throne room to find it full of arguing. Zephyrians. General Zaxtor was speaking loudly to Minister Colvin while other court members stood in worried groups. Queen Veltara sat on her throne looking tired. When she saw Jake enter, she held up her hand for silence. "General Zaxtor was just expressing his concerns about our human guests," she said. Her voice was carefully controlled. General Zaxtor stepped forward. He was a tall Zephyrian with dark blue skin and angry silver eyes. Your Majesty, with respect, this human has done something to your mind. This story about ancient architects is impossible. You saw the records yourself, the Queen said. I saw old drawings and legends, Zaxtor replied. Stories told by primitive peoples who knew nothing about science. These humans are clever. They have somehow learned our myths and are using them to trick you. Minister Colvin nodded in agreement. Your Majesty, even if this human does carry some ancient mark, that doesn't make his entire species worthy of respect. Humans are still violent and chaotic. They still lack true civilization. Jake felt his anger rising. We're standing right here. You could try talking to us instead of about us. General Zaxtor turned to face him. Very well, human. Tell me, what makes your species worthy of sharing the galaxy with civilized beings? You have been in space for barely 50 years. You still fight wars on your homeworld. Your technology is crude and dangerous. Our technology got us here, Jake said. And yes, we fight sometimes, but we also help each other. We explore. We create art and music and stories. We never give up when things get hard. Pretty words, Zaxtor said, but words are easy. Any species can claim to be noble. Dr. Peter Hayes, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. What would it take to prove ourselves to you? The general smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Nothing you could possibly do. Humans lack the intelligence and discipline for true greatness. Queen. Veltara stood up from her throne. Enough. Her voice echoed through the chamber. If you doubt what I have seen, General, then we will put it to the test. The room fell silent. Minister Colvin looked worried. Your Majesty, what kind of test? The Queen walked down the crystal steps. There is a place on our homeworld, a chamber built by the architects themselves, discovered by our people 3,000 years ago. It contains trials designed to test worthiness. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of trials? Tests of mind, body, and spirit, the Queen said. Many of our greatest champions have attempted them over the centuries. Most have failed. Some have died. General Zaxtor looked pleased. Yes. Let the human try the architect trials. When he fails, we will know the truth about these false claims. Sam Turner, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward. That sounds dangerous. What if Jake gets hurt? Then we will know he was not truly chosen by the architects, Minister Colvin said coldly. Jake looked at his companions. Lisa looked worried. Peter was taking notes, but his face was pale. Sam just looked angry. I'll do it, Jake said. Jake, no, Lisa protested. We don't know what these trials involve. This could be a trap. It's not a trap, Jake said. He wasn't sure how he knew that, but he was certain. The visions I've been having, I think they're preparing me for something like this. The Queen studied his face carefully. You feel it, don't you? The call of the ancient place. Jake nodded. It was hard to explain, but he did feel something pulling at him, like a voice calling his name from very far away. Then we will go to the homeworld, the Queen declared. The human will face the architect trials. If he succeeds, his species will be welcomed as equals in the Zephyrian Empire. If he fails... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. General Zaxtor bowed to the Queen, but Jake could see the satisfaction in his eyes. It will be an honor to witness the human's attempt, Your Majesty. 2 days later, Jake found himself standing on the surface of the Zephyrian homeworld. The planet was beautiful in a perfect artificial way. The cities were all crystal and flowing water, with no sharp edges or ugly buildings. Everything was designed to be pleasing to the eye. But Jake wasn't looking at the cities. He was staring at a hill in the distance where a simple stone structure sat alone. It looked out of place among all the crystal beauty. It looked ancient and powerful and somehow alive. That is the architect chamber, Queen Veltara said softly. It has stood there since before my people learned to speak. The structure was made of black stone that seemed to absorb light. There were no decorations, no windows, just a single door that looked like it had been carved from one piece of rock. "What's inside?" Jake asked. "No one knows," the Queen said. "The chamber changes for each person who enters. Some see puzzles of pure logic, others face tests of courage. The trials are different for everyone." Dr. Hayes was scanning the building with his instruments. "I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before. The whole structure is generating some kind of field." As they got closer to the chamber, Jake's visions became stronger. He saw flashes of beings made of light working together to build something important. He heard voices speaking in harmony, discussing the future of the galaxy. And underneath it all, he sensed something dark and hungry, approaching from the void between stars. "They built this place as a warning," Jake said suddenly, "and as a weapon." Queen Veltara looked at him in surprise. "How do you know that?" "I don't know how I know," Jake said, "but I can feel it. The architects knew something terrible was coming. This chamber isn't just a test. It's a key." General Zaxtor laughed harshly. "More pretty stories. Let us see if your human magic works on ancient stone." They reached the door of the chamber. Up close, Jake could see that it was covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. The symbols seemed to move and change when he wasn't looking straight at them. Queen Veltara placed her hand on Jake's shoulder. "Are you certain about this? Once you enter, I cannot help you. You will face the trials alone." Jake looked back at his friends. Lisa gave him an encouraging nod. Peter held up his recorder, promising to document everything. Sam just said, "Don't do anything too stupid in there." Jake smiled and turned back to the door. As he approached it, the symbols began to glow with soft blue light. The door opened without any sound, revealing darkness beyond. "Remember," the Queen said, "the trials will test everything you are. Your intelligence, your courage, your heart. Be true to yourself and you may survive." Jake nodded and stepped toward the doorway. As he crossed the threshold, he felt the strange energy wash over him. The world outside seemed to fade away. The door closed behind him with a sound like distant thunder. Jake Morrison, ordinary human from Earth, was alone in an architect chamber that had waited millions of years for him to arrive. The trials were about to begin. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, ancient enemies sensed that their most dangerous foe had finally awakened. Inside the architect chamber, Jake found himself standing in a room that couldn't exist. The walls seemed to stretch forever in all directions, but somehow he could still see them clearly. The floor was made of something that looked like solid starlight. "Welcome, child of Earth," a voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Jake looked around but saw no one. "Who's there?" A figure began to form in front of him. It was tall and thin, made of what looked like golden light. It had a face that was both ancient and timeless, with eyes that held the wisdom of ages. "I am Echo," the figure said. "I am what remains of the architect who built this chamber. I have waited a very long time for you to arrive." Jake felt a chill. "You've been waiting for me specifically?" "For you or someone like you," Echo said. "A human carrying the awakened bloodline, the last hope we planted in the galaxy before our time ended." The room around them began to change. Jake found himself standing on a platform surrounded by stars. But these weren't ordinary stars. They were alive, pulsing with intelligence and purpose. "This is how the galaxy looked when my people first achieved transcendence," Echo explained. "We had learned to exist as pure energy while keeping our individual minds and hearts. We thought we had found the perfect form of life." The scene changed. Jake saw cities of light floating between the stars, beings of energy dancing through space, creating new worlds and guiding young civilizations. "We became gardeners of the galaxy," Echo continued. "We found primitive species and helped them grow. We shared our knowledge carefully, hoping to guide them toward wisdom and peace." "That sounds wonderful," Jake said. "What went wrong?" The stars around them began to dim. Echo's golden form became less bright. "We made a mistake," Echo said sadly. "We assumed that all species would appreciate our guidance. We thought that by helping them grow, we were giving them a gift." The scene changed again. Now Jake saw different species across the galaxy. Some were grateful for the architect's help, but others looked angry and resentful. Many of the species we helped began to see us as oppressors, Echo explained. They said we were keeping them as children, never letting them truly grow up. They wanted to prove they didn't need us. Jake watched as the resentment grew. Species that had been helped by the architects began to talk to each other. They formed alliances based on their shared anger. They called themselves the Coalition of the Free, Echo said. They claimed we were tyrants who controlled the galaxy through false kindness. But you were trying to help them, Jake protested. Yes, Echo agreed. But help that isn't wanted can feel like control. We were so focused on our wisdom that we forgot to listen to their pride. The scene showed great battles in space, ships from dozens of worlds fighting against beings of pure light. The architects tried to defend themselves, but Jake could see they were holding back. Why didn't you fight back properly? Jake asked. You were clearly more powerful. Echo's light flickered with sadness. Because they were our children. How could we destroy our own creations? How could we use our full power against beings we had helped to grow? Jake watched as the coalition forces pushed deeper into architect space. The beings of light retreated again and again, unwilling to truly harm their attackers. We thought they would eventually understand, Echo said. We thought their anger would fade and they would see that we only wanted the best for them. But it didn't work that way, Jake said quietly. No, Echo confirmed. Their anger only grew stronger. They saw our restraint as weakness, our mercy as mockery. They wanted us gone completely. The final scene was the worst. Jake watched as coalition fleets surrounded the last architect's strongholds. The beings of light faced with total extinction made a desperate choice. We couldn't bear to destroy our children, Echo said. So we destroyed ourselves instead. But before we died, we planted seeds. The scene showed architects dissolving into streams of light that spread across the galaxy, settling into the genetic patterns of primitive species on thousands of worlds. We hid our knowledge and our power in the bloodlines of young races, Echo explained. We programmed it to awaken slowly over many generations. We hoped that by the time our gifts activated, the hatred would have faded. Jake felt tears on his face. That's horrible. You died because you loved them too much to fight them. We died because we were too proud to admit our mistakes, Echo corrected. We should have stepped back sooner. We should have let them find their own way, even if it meant watching them make errors. The starfield faded, and they were back in the simple chamber. But Jake could see more details now. The walls were covered in symbols that told the whole story Echo had shown him. But something else survived, didn't it? Jake asked. He was beginning to understand. The coalition didn't just disappear after you were gone. Echo's golden light pulsed with warning. The leaders of the coalition were consumed by their hatred. Even after we were extinct, they couldn't let go of their rage. They transformed themselves into something else, something hungry for destruction. The Void Hunters, Jake whispered. Somehow he knew the name. Yes, Echo confirmed. They retreated to the darkness between galaxies, feeding on dead worlds and growing stronger. They have waited millions of years for our bloodlines to awaken. Jake felt a cold fear settle in his stomach. They're coming back. They are already here, Echo said. My sensors detect their scout ships entering this galaxy. They know that humans have begun to awaken. They know that the architect legacy is active again. The chamber began to tremble. Jake could feel power building in the walls around him. The trials you faced to get here were not tests, Echo said. They were preparations. The chamber has been teaching your body and mind to handle architect abilities. Jake looked down at his hands. They were glowing with soft golden light, just like Echo's form. I can feel it, Jake said in wonder. It's like there's energy flowing through me. The full awakening takes time, Echo warned, and it comes with a price. Each time you use architect power, you become less human and more like what we were. Eventually, you may face the same choice we did. What choice? whether to remain connected to humanity or transcend to pure energy and risk losing your ability to truly understand mortal concerns. Jake thought about Queen Veltara waiting outside. He thought about Lisa, Peter, and Sam. He thought about all the humans on Earth who had no idea what was coming. "How many others are there?" he asked. "Other humans with the bloodline?" "Dozens, across your colonies," Echo said. "Each will awaken at different rates with different abilities. You are the first, but not the last. Can we stop the Void Hunters?" Echo was quiet for a long moment. "My people failed because we couldn't adapt. We were too set in our ways, too convinced of our own righteousness. You have a chance we didn't have." "What chance?" "You understand both cooperation and conflict," Echo explained. "You know how to fight when necessary, but also how to make peace. You have something we lost long ago." "What's that?" "The ability to change and grow. The willingness to admit mistakes and try new approaches. We architects became perfect, and perfection cannot adapt. But humans are beautifully flawed." The golden light began to fade from Jake's hands, but he could still feel the power waiting just beneath the surface. "The chamber has given you the tools," Echo said. "But how you use them is up to you. Just remember, the Void Hunters are coming not just for you, but for every species in this galaxy. What happened to us was only the beginning of their hunger." Echo's form started to dissolve. "The awakening is spreading, Jake Morrison. Soon more humans will begin to change. You must find them, guide them, and prepare them for what's coming." "Wait," Jake called out. "How much time do we have?" "Not long," Echo's fading voice replied. "The Void Hunter fleets are already moving. You have perhaps 1 year before they arrive in force." The chamber began to dissolve around Jake. He found himself back at the entrance with Queen Veltara and his friends waiting anxiously outside. "Jake!" Lisa ran to him. "You've been in there for 6 hours. Are you okay?" Jake looked at his hands. They looked normal now, but he could still feel the power Echo had awakened in him. More importantly, he could feel something else, a connection to other humans across the galaxy who were beginning to change. "We need to talk," he said to Queen Veltara. "All of us, because everything is about to change." The Queen looked at his eyes and gasped. They still looked human, but now they held a depth that hadn't been there before. The depth of someone who had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. "The trials," she whispered. "You passed them." "More than that," Jake said grimly. "I learned the truth, and now we have to prepare for war." In the darkness between galaxies, ancient ships began to move toward the light. The Void Hunters had waited long enough. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. 6 months had passed since Jake's awakening in the Architect Chamber. The galaxy was in chaos. Jake stood on the bridge of the human ship Liberty, looking out at a fleet unlike anything ever seen before. Zephyrian crystal ships flew alongside, human vessels made of metal and earth alloys. Other species had joined them too, the peaceful Velnari, the warrior Kethron, and dozens of smaller civilizations. But it wasn't enough. Not against what was coming. "Report," Jake said to Lisa, who now served as his second in command. 3 more human colonies have gone dark," Lisa said grimly. "That makes 12 in the past month. The Void Hunter scouts are moving faster than we expected." Jake closed his eyes and reached out with his awakened senses. Across human space, he could feel other bloodlines activating. Amy Brooks, a mechanic on Mars, had discovered she could make alien technology work just by touching it. Carl Stone, a teacher on Europa, found he could speak languages from dead civilizations. Tina Lewis, an engineer on Alpha Centauri, was building ships with designs that came to her in dreams. Each awakening made the humans stronger, but each one also drew the Void Hunters closer. "Any word from Queen Veltara?" Jake asked. "She's still trying to convince the Hegemony Council to join the Alliance," Dr. Peter Hayes said from his station, "but most species are too scared to fight. They're hoping the Void Hunters will be satisfied with destroying just the humans." Jake felt a flash of anger. After everything they had learned, after all the proof they had shown, most species still preferred to hide. Sam Turner looked up from the pilot's console. "Jake, we're getting a signal from Earth. It's your sister." Jake's heart jumped. Emma Morrison was a doctor who had stayed on Earth to help coordinate the evacuation of major cities. She was also showing signs of awakening. "Put her through." Emma's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired and worried, but her eyes had the same deep light that Jake's carried now. "Jake, thank God," she said. "We've got problems here. Something's wrong with the awakened humans." "What do you mean?" "The power is growing too fast in some of them," Emma explained. "Remember Carl Stone, the language teacher? Yesterday he started speaking only an ancient architect tongue. He won't respond to his own name. It's like he's becoming someone else." Jake felt a chill. Echo had warned him about this. The more they used architect abilities, the less human they became. "How many others?" he asked. 7 so far," Emma said. "They're still alive, but they don't seem to remember their families or their lives before awakening." "Jake, I'm scared. What if this happens to all of us?" Before Jake could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. "Contact!" Sam shouted. "Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. They're not ours." Jake turned to the main screen and felt his blood turn to ice. The ships emerging from the darkness were like nothing he had ever seen. They were black as space itself, with strange angles that hurt to look at. They seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Void hunters," he whispered. The alien ships didn't attack immediately. Instead, they broadcast a message on all frequencies. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical, but Jake could hear the hatred beneath it. "Architect." "Spawn," the voice said. "We have traveled far to finish what we began eons ago. Your creators thought they could hide their poison in inferior bloodlines. They were wrong." One of the Void Hunter ships moved closer. Jake could see details now. That made his stomach turn. The ship's hull was covered in what looked like faces, the remains of species the Void Hunters had consumed over the millennia. "We offer the galaxy one chance," the voice continued. "Surrender the awakened humans to us, and we will leave the other species in peace. Refuse and watch as we turn every world to ash." Queen Veltara's voice came over the comm from her flagship. "This is Queen Veltara of the Zephyrian Empire. We do not negotiate with destroyers. The humans are under our protection." The Void Hunter ship responded by firing a beam of pure darkness at a nearby asteroid. The rock didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been there at all. "You have 1 hour to reconsider," the voice said. Then the Void Hunter ships pulled back to the edge of the system. Jake's mind was racing. They couldn't fight ships that could erase matter itself, but they couldn't surrender either. The Void Hunters wouldn't stop with just the awakened humans. Their hunger would consume everything. "Jake," Lisa said quietly, "the other human ships are asking for orders. What do we do?" Jake looked around the bridge at his friends. Lisa, who had followed him across the galaxy. Peter, who had documented their incredible journey. Sam, who had piloted them through danger after danger. All of them were willing to die for what they believed in. Then he thought about his sister Emma, scared but still trying to help. About Amy and Carl and Tina, and all the other awakened humans who were struggling with powers they barely understood. And he thought about Echo's words in the chamber. The architects had failed because they couldn't adapt. They were too perfect, too set in their ways. Humans were different. Humans could change. "Open a channel to all ships," Jake said. "Human, Zephyrian, everyone." When the channel was open, Jake took a deep breath. "This is Commander Jake Morrison," he said. 6 months ago, I was just another human soldier. Today, I carry the power of beings who died millions of years ago. But I'm still human. I still remember growing up on a farm, playing with my sister, dreaming about the stars." He paused, feeling the architect energy flowing through him. "The Void Hunters want us to choose between our humanity and our power. They think we'll make the same mistake the architects made, that we'll become so focused on transcendence that we forget why we're fighting." Jake looked directly into the camera. There, Wrong. We're not going to abandon our humanity to become gods. We're going to use our power to stay human, to protect what we love, to fight for our right to be flawed and chaotic and beautifully imperfect. He reached out with his awakened senses, connecting to every human in the fleet. He could feel their fear but also their determination. "Emma," he said, knowing his sister could hear him. "Carl, Amy, Tina, all of you who are awakening, don't fight the change, but don't let it erase who you are. Remember your families. Remember your dreams. Use the power, but stay human." Jake felt the connection strengthen. Across human space, the awakened humans began to work together, sharing their abilities while holding on to their identities. "And to everyone else in this fleet," Jake continued, "human, Zephyrian, and all the others, we're not asking you to die for us. We're asking you to live for yourselves. The Void Hunters won't stop with humanity. They'll consume everything until the galaxy is empty and cold." Queen Veltara's voice came over the comm. "Jake Morrison speaks the truth. My people spent thousands of years looking for the architect legacy. Now that we've found it, we won't let it be destroyed by ancient hatred." Other voices joined in. The Velnari fleet commander, the Kethron war chief, smaller species adding their strength to the alliance. Jake smiled. "Then let's show these Void Hunters what cooperation looks like." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Void Hunters came with ships that could erase matter and weapons that devoured light itself. But the Alliance had something the ancient architects never possessed: the willingness to adapt and change tactics moment by moment. Jake and the other awakened humans didn't try to become gods. Instead, they used their powers to coordinate the fleet, to enhance their allies' abilities, to find weaknesses in Void Hunter technology. Amy Brooks worked with Zephyrian engineers to modify weapons that could hurt the dark ships. Carl Stone translated ancient battle strategies that the Kethran warriors put to devastating use. Tina Lewis designed new ship configurations that confused Void Hunter targeting systems. The battle raged for days. Ships were lost on both sides. But slowly, impossibly, the Alliance began to win. The turning point came when Jake realized something Echo hadn't told him. The Void Hunters were no longer the species that had destroyed the architects. They had become something else over the millennia, being so consumed by hatred that they had lost the ability to truly adapt or create. They could only destroy. They could only consume. They had no imagination left. But the Alliance had imagination, in abundance. In the end, it wasn't superior firepower that defeated the Void Hunters. It was creativity, cooperation, and the refusal to give up their essential natures in pursuit of power. The last Void Hunter ship limped away into dark space, carrying word of their defeat to whatever remained of their empire. Jake stood on the bridge of the Liberty, looking out at the mixed fleet of survivors. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. Thousands of ships lost. Millions of lives ended. But the galaxy was free. "What happens now?" Lisa asked. Jake thought about it. The awakened humans would continue to change and grow, but they would do it as humans. The Alliance would need time to heal and rebuild, and somewhere in the darkness, there might be other threats waiting. "Now we go home," Jake said. "We help our people. We build something better than what came before." Queen Veltara's ship moved alongside the Liberty. Through the viewports, Jake could see her on her own bridge, looking out at the stars. "Jake," she said over the comm, "thank you for showing us that power without wisdom is destruction. But wisdom without humanity is just another kind of